It's Tuesday, November 28th. I'm your host, Sarah Beal. On today's show, we'll talk with Housing Coordinator Arden Cadron about the Hyannis Homebuyer Assistance Program. Then we'll check in with Airport Manager Bud Brielle, and finally, we'll get an update on the Department of Public Works with Director Dan Santos. But first, let's get a look at today's top headlines. Board of Health meets this afternoon at 3 p.m. in the Town Hall hearing room. On their agenda are some septic issues, including a variance, a septic determination, and an innovative alternative septic system monitoring plan. They will also hear a food variance regarding the Thirsty Tuna located on Ocean Street, as well as 2 temporary food events for Cape Cod beer. The full agenda can be found at the town's website. Conservation Commission will also meet today. They will meet tonight at 6:30 p.m. in the Town Hall hearing room. On their agenda will be the annual Sandy Neck report, as well as continued discussion on flagpole lighting. In the regular orders of the day, they will hear requests for determination, notices of intent, and a few continuances. The Town of Barnstable Public Health Division will hold a flu clinic at the Hyannis Youth and Community Center on Thursday, December 7th from 2 to 4 p.m. The clinic is open to town residents only, and the fee is just $3. For more information, you can call the Health Division at 508-862-4644. Food composting is available at the transfer station and recycling center. The goal of the program is to reduce the amount of food waste that gets thrown away with the trash, thereby reducing trash disposal costs. Residents with a current trash disposal or recycling only sticker may now drop off their household kitchen scraps and food waste for composting at no additional cost. The collection barrels are located in one of the sheds used to contain recycling materials. While most kitchen scraps may be composted, such items as kitty litter, plastics, cardboard, and styrofoam may not be disposed of for composting. Mass DOT is continuing their roadway improvements at the intersection of Route 28 and Burses Way. The next phase started last week and will continue until this Friday, December 1st. During this phase, the eastbound lane of Route 28 will be detoured south on Burses Way, down Walton Ave, and then back out onto Route 28. Traffic during construction will be delayed, and motorists are advised to seek an alternate route. Up next, we'll learn all about the Hyannis Homebuyer Assistance Program with Housing Coordinator Arden Cadron. Arden, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to talk about the Hyannis Homebuyer Assistance Program, which I know started a couple months ago. Let's start with, where did the idea for this program come from, and how did that, get started?
Well, we're using our community development block grant funds for this program, and affordable housing is one of the prime initiatives of that program. And we decided to start with the village of Hyannis because it right now has a larger percentage of rentals versus the other 7 villages, the other 6 villages. And we're trying to promote homeownership, and we're trying to promote some neighborhood stabilization, which homeownership does help to achieve. So we decided to focus in Hyannis. There's also limited availability of funds, so it helps to sort of target a particular area. And this is a trial. We'll start with Hyannis, and we hope to expand it to the other villages as well.
Wonderful. Now, what exactly are the community development block grant funds for anyone who's not sure what that is?
Sure. So that's CDBG funds. They're federal funds that the town receives. We're an entitlement community, so every year we get an allocation of funds from the federal government, from HUD. Many people have heard of HUD. And then there are some available uses, some allowable uses with those funds. And this year we decided to start this program.
Wonderful. Well, this is a great use of those funds.
It
so,
is.
I mean, that's, but there's a lot of little intricacies that go on with this program. So let's kind of start with what exactly the program is.
Right. So the program is financial assistance to income eligible first-time home buyers. So income eligible has a financial number attached to that. You have to be less than 80% of the median income, depending on your household size. And then you need to be a first-time home buyer. There are some caveats to that, which we can explain to you if people contact the office. And you need to be eligible to receive a first mortgage from a local lender. So this program assists you in filling that gap between what you can afford to borrow and what the prices are on the market, because as everybody knows, these prices are just increasing constantly. There's really not much available out there for somebody at 80% of the median, so we're giving you a little more buying power. And it's in the form of a second mortgage, so it is a lien against your property, but there's zero interest and there's no payments required during the time that you own the house. You would only pay the funds back when you sell the house. And at that point, hopefully you'll have built some equity in the house and be able to pay those funds back.
Right. So you're looking for buyers that can already get approved for that first mortgage. And you could almost look at the $75,000 as you take the total amount of the house that you're looking at and be like, okay, what we would end up paying would be $75,000 less.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, you're getting a no payment $75,000 loan, which is fabulous. It helps you to have more stability in that house. You're not reaching beyond your means. You're not spending more of your monthly income on housing than is really practical or safe.
Yeah.
So that's what this $75,000 does. So for example, if you're pre-approved, we'll use simple round numbers. If you're pre-approved, you've gone to a bank, they've looked at your numbers, your income, you're pre-approved for about $200,000, you can now look for a house for $275,000 because these funds will help assist you with that purchase.
And that's a really large help. I recently bought a home about 4 years ago, and it's the market is very difficult out there. You have to be really keen to be looking at what you're getting versus where you are, and there's so many parts of it that to be able to look at that house that you might not normally have been able to look at.
Exactly.
That's just out of your range, or that's going to be a huge help to so many people if they can get
Absolutely.
that first mortgage.
If they can get that first mortgage, and we're hoping that it also helps you to buy a house that doesn't need a tremendous amount of work, because that's a challenge as well. You might be able to find something on the market, but you need to have a lot of cash in the bank to be able to make these repairs on the house. So we're hoping it also helps you to purchase something that's in a little better shape, so that it's not going to be a burden on you once you own it and continue to use a lot of your income towards repairs.
That's wonderful.
So, and as a reminder, it does need to be within the village of Hyannis. So the map for the village of Hyannis, we're using the fire district map. We have that map available for anybody who's interested if they're looking at a property and need to know if it's within the village. But that is another criteria. And at this point, only single-family homes are eligible. Condominiums are not eligible. We're trying to get families into neighborhoods and people into neighborhoods.
Wonderful. Now, how is the payback process, the $75,000?
Well, if in a number of years, the average person, believe it or not, only owns a home for 7 years. I think when you buy your house, you think you're not going to fall in that statistic, but it happens. For whatever reason, hopefully for good reasons, your income has increased or your family size has increased. So when you sell that house, you have to just remember that 75% of that is going to come back to the town. So there's a mortgage on your property, so at closing, it will be clear to all the attorneys involved that $75,000 of that equity does need to come back to the town. I don't expect to be receiving any funds back soon, but when they do come back, we can reprogram those funds.
That's wonderful. That's a great way to kind of build that continuing of the program by having that money come back in that way. Whether you live in the house for 5 years, 25 years, 35 years, the town will get that money back and can continue the program, hopefully.
Absolutely. It's a different method of assisting people at income eligibility. Often it's done with a deed restriction, but deed restrictions limit the amount of equity that you can build and the amount of funds that you can get back. And it's so there's two different methods. And we're choosing this route this time to see how if it's more effective in assisting people to get into homeownership.
Wonderful. Well, hopefully you'll get some great candidates that come in that are ready to move forward with the first mortgage, so they can get the second mortgage, and then they can find a wonderful house in Hyannis. I live in Hyannis and I absolutely love it. So there's nothing wrong with living in Hyannis. It's a great village.
It is.
It's a great community.
Hyannis has a lot of potential, and the town is focusing a lot of our planning efforts in Hyannis, and I agree. It's I think only a great place to live. So for those people who might be interested, they can contact the Planning and Development Department. There's applications online that they can fill out online and bring them in. We'd be happy to meet with anybody if they have an application ready and help walk them through that process.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming in, telling us all about this great Hyannis Homebuyer Assistance Program, and I can't wait to hear about some success stories that you have coming up in the next year or so.
Great, thanks for having me. I
Thank
look forward
you.
to coming back and sharing those stories.
Wonderful. My guest today is Arden Cadron. She's the Housing Coordinator in the Planning and Development Department. Coming up, we'll chat with DPW Director Dan Santos, but first, let's check in with Barnstable Municipal Airport Manager Bud Brielt. Bud, thank you so much for joining us today. We have a couple things to chat about today. The first thing I wanted to talk about was last week you presented at Town Council a little bit about what's going on with your budget. So what can you tell us about that?
Well, I can tell you that our budget has been going downhill primarily because we've been losing passengers at the airport, and for a number of reasons. We had one airline that went bankrupt about almost 2 years ago now, and when they did, we lost about 50,000 annual passengers a year. And our numbers have been dropping steadily, I think, because we've been losing a lot of traffic to the high-speed ferries. And, this is one of my big things I like to talk about is that, we have to watch all modes of transportation in the area to support them all, not one to the detriment of another. So, because we all provide that lifeline to Nantucket, and if one goes down, then later on, if another one goes down, then there's no backup. Somebody else is bankrupt. Mm-hmm. So we've lost a lot of traffic to the high-speed ferries, and we'd love to see some of them come back to the airport and to help keep us viable. And so that has affected us in a number of ways. Not only have we lost the passengers, but when that happens, then you lose revenues because of parking, and you lose revenues because people aren't there to rent the car, and so forth. So it's one thing, what do they call that, just continuing to go downhill, mm-hmm. and you just can't really fix it. So we're suffering a little bit because of that, and so we're having to diversify what we do at the airport, because aviation in and of itself is not going to be enough to sustain the airport. So we're looking for other ways to market our properties, and if people have any interest in doing something like that, they should really give us a call, because we'd be very interested in talking to them about marketing some of our other properties to, spread the wealth and diversify our revenue sources.
Yeah, the airport is a big property, and it's a big piece of our community here. And I know one of the things that you do in order to kind of add that extra piece in is that you now have Peter Pan running shuttles from the airport to Boston, which I think is such a wonderful partnership.
Yeah, it's great, and that came about because we were looking for alternative ways to not only help the transportation, but also help our parking, and also alleviate problems with parking up at the park and ride mm-hmm. at Exit 6. And so Peter Pan volunteered to make a stop at the airport. So they leave from the RTA, and then they come by the airport, and then they head up, I guess they go up to the park and ride and then head for Boston. And so it's a great alternative way to get to the airport in Boston if you're interested in doing that. And I think someone from your own staff just did that recently and had a wonderful time.
Yes, Chris, who works here with us, he just did that over this past weekend, and he said it was great. They picked him right up at the airport. He got to the airport on time. So, I mean, you can't really beat that. So, Bud, you had a new commissioner join the Airport Commission last week. You have Joe Berlandi. He's from Comaquid. Pretty exciting to have a new member. You have quite a few new members, I should say, on the Airport Commission.
We've had a lot of changes in the last year or so. Mm-hmm. We've lost 4 very old timers, if you will, who'd been with us for a number of years, and all have been replaced with a lot of new people. And the latest one was Attorney Joseph Berlandi, who has an office in Barnstable Village, and he'll be a welcome addition. And he's replacing our longtime member, Bob O'Brien, who retired back in June. Mm-hmm. And Bob, if you remember, is a World War II veteran, and is a wonderful person, and we're just really sorry to see him leave.
Yeah, Bob's great. He works here at town too, and he's definitely going to be missed across the board. But it's nice to have some new faces come on to the commission, give a new voice, some new experience.
Nothing like getting free legal advice from a member of the commission,
Exactly. Can't beat that.
No, that's a great. I think he's already proven to be quite engaged with the process, and so we're really looking forward to working with him.
Excellent. We also wanted to talk, I know it's everybody's least favorite 4-letter word, snow, but I know that you guys do a lot to get prepared for snow and ice in the event of that happening at the airport, and you have some de-icing that you do for the plane, so let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we're every year, actually we started back in October getting ready for snow, and all of our equipment is ready, and so we're waiting for that bad day when we have the first snowfall mm-hmm. To make sure everything's working fine. all of our equipment is up and running, and we're ready for it. And last year we started a brand new aircraft de-icing program. We didn't have very many takers last year, but I think once the word gets out, we will start using that more to provide another service to many of our airport customers. And we now, we're using a brand new centralized de-icing pad that we began working with about a year ago. Also, it was completed as one of our last construction projects, and it's a pretty good little system we have. So we're looking forward to being able to provide optimum service for snow and ice.
Wonderful. Well, I know a lot of people out there will say, well, hopefully we don't get any, but that's not usually the case here on Cape Cod. We will get some snow, so
that would be nice.
Yes. And the last thing I wanted to chat about was you're going to have a new vendor in the cafe at the airport.
Yes, we're very excited. We were at Cape Cod Coffee, where their home offices are in Mashpee, but they have expanded, and one of their outlets will be here at the airport, and we're really looking forward to it. We've actually started the transition, if you will. We signed a contract with them this past Tuesday night, and they're busily trying to get all their permits in line, and we're hoping to open the first week in December. Okay. And they're going to be providing coffee, teas, and drinks, and some foods and grab and go type things, and they're also thinking about and applying for a liquor license to be able to serve alcoholic beverages as well.
Wonderful.
So I think it's exciting, and they seem to be a very, very good and up-and-coming company, and a lot of people that love their coffee won't drink anything else but.
Everyone's got their favorite, so, it'd be great for everybody that really loves that.
Well, they do, and we're trying to change that. So
yes.
This will be nice.
Wonderful. Well, good luck to them, and I hope they do well, and I can't wait to check them out once they get settled in.
We are certainly welcome to come over. I might even buy you your first cup of coffee.
Sounds good to me. Thank you so much, Bud, for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sarah. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
My guest today is Airport Manager Bud Brielle. Dan, thank you so much for joining us today. The first thing we want to talk about is the new shanties that are going in next to Town Hall. There's going to be 3 new shanties, very similar to the ones that are down on the harbor. So what can you tell me about this wonderful project?
Well, the similarity in the shanties, the new ones, is really in how they're going to be used, apparently, by the planning and development folks and the Arts Hyannis, and they're going to be leasing them out. But the similarity really ends there. These are permanent structures that we're putting in, and they're really nice. The 2 that are up already, there's going to be a total of 3. Very Cape Cod looking, and they're painted and paint trim and trim boards and windows, and much different than the really sheds that were installed over at Bismore. And the reason is the ones at Bismore are like that is because they have to be removed every year. They're not permanent structures because that's a floodplain over there, and the building department won't let us put them there and leave them there.
Right.
But it's a different situation up in, I think it's Ruth Rusher Park there next to Town Hall, where they're putting the 3 shantings. And I think ultimately they'd like to have a total of 5, but right now it's just the 3 that we had funding for. Mm-hmm. And the third one will probably be going up in the next week or so, and they're going to have electricity in them. It's possible they'll be used for longer in the season than the ones down in the harbor. But again, I'll let the program folks deal with that. But they've been a very popular thing, and this has been kind of a long time coming, getting these in there and getting people to have something to look at in their hiking and walking from Main Street down to the harbor. And so this is on that pathway.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a great way to connect the walkway to the sea. It brings you right down through the Village Green and right down to the harbor. It gives you another place to stop. It's going to be a great location for whatever artists end up going into that location. What was the process like to get this approved and moved into this location?
Well, it wasn't too complicated since we own the property. Mm-hmm. We basically have to put together a set of plans and specs and present that to the town building commissioner, who's now Brian Florence, and his staff review it, make sure it meets all the codes, because even a small building like that, you have to meet certain building codes for handicapped access and resistance to hurricane force winds and all those kind of things that we look at. And then once we had had that all set, we went out to bid and got a contractor to bid, and we generally award to the lowest bidder that has some experience. So they've got to know what they're doing, and that's how it goes. Not too complicated, but everything that we do takes some time because of the contracting process and having to get them designed and go through that. But
wonderful.
It's something we do regularly, so we're not strangers to the process.
They look great, and Chris and I down here at Channel 18 have been kind of keeping our eye on them and taking pictures for Melissa Chartrand from the Planning and Development Department. So we're really excited to see them go up, and it's a great little project. I think it's really going to help that area. So very cool, very exciting. We also wanted to talk real quickly. The Barnstable Harbor Dredge has been out in the harbor dredging for about, I want to say, like a month and a half or so. How is that project going?
I don't think it's been that long.
Oh, okay.
A few weeks. It's going well, and they're going to be done. They should be done in a couple of weeks. It's not going to take all that long. It's not all that much material, and that material is being dredged out of the channel, the harbor channel. It's put on a scow or a barge, and then it goes out into Cape Cod Bay. There's a site that's been permitted where they can put this material, so we don't have to truck it or pay to get rid of it or anything like that.
Interesting. I wasn't aware of that. That's an interesting way to do it.
When we can, we do that, and it has to meet certain quality standards. So we can't put contaminated material out there, of course. So, and it's not sand. Usually we reuse it when it's pure sand. This is different. This has fine material in it, and clay and silt and things like that. So it wouldn't be appropriate on the beach.
No. So that's great. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on is that I know there's a new four-way stop at Strawberry Hill Road and Old Craigville Road in Centerville. It was a two-way stop before. Now it's a four-way stop. Let's talk a little bit about the reasoning behind creating a four-way stop in this location.
Okay. Oftentimes we get requests to review. We get a lot of requests to review stop signs, traffic lights, all kinds of things. No parking. And we look at them all, and there's a very specific process for getting stop signs in, and we use as a manual for traffic devices. That's the standard across the country. And so in order to put a stop sign in, it has to be warranted. In other words, it has to be justified. And so there's things we look at, like sight distances, road speeds, traffic on each road, if it's a four-way intersection, crashes. There's a history of crashes. And so if it meets the justification or warrant, then we make a recommendation to the town manager to install a stop sign, because it is a regulatory sign, and if you fail to obey it, you can be cited and fined for it. And so in this case, it was warranted, and the town manager signed it, and so we've put the stop sign in, and hopefully that will keep from any accidents or incidents happening at that intersection. So, it's meant to be proactive in addressing possible traffic concerns.
That's wonderful. I know that leading up to the new four-way stop being installed, that there was signage and light strips that were kind of installed to kind of alert people to the fact that it's now a four-way stop. So are those going to stay up for a little while?
A little while, and I don't know exactly, but it's just to make people aware that there's a change. And typically, it's the same people are driving through an intersection like that. So once they understand it, we don't want them to get caught. Right off the bat. Hey, wait a minute, that wasn't there before.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Jan, for joining us today. Is there anything else you want to let our viewers know about before I let you go?
I think that's all set for now.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jan. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. My guest today is Dan Santos. He's the Director of Public Works here in the town of Barnstable. This week's community calendar is all about the holidays. Each village in Barnstable hosts their own village event to get everyone in the holiday spirit. Here are the dates and times for all 7 upcoming village events. take a look at this week's board, committee, and commission schedule. Thanks for joining us today. We'll be back tomorrow with an all-new show. On tomorrow's show, we will chat with Chief Paul McDonald, and we'll get a financial update with Finance Director Mark Milne. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Beal.